I've replayed that day in my mind 1,000 times, trying to find the exact moment when everything shifted, when my life stopped belonging to me and became someone else's plan. But the truth is, the day I died began like any ordinary Tuesday, quiet and uneventful, the kind you barely remember a week later. If someone told me that in less than 12 hours I would be declared dead, buried in an empty coffin, and betrayed by the two people I trusted most, I would have laughed. I had no idea that my whole life was already in motion toward a cliff I didn't even see coming. It started at 9:14 a.m. I was leaving my office, loosening my tie, because the heater was always too warm there, when my phone buzzed with a message from my wife, Kira. "Dinner at 8? Don't be late. Nothing unusual. Not affectionate either. Not really." Her heart emoji always felt like a sticker someone puts on a cracked mirror. Pretty, but empty behind the shine. I didn't answer. I should have. It still haunts me how small decisions can turn into detonators. At 11:07, I sat in the cafe across the street from my office, stirring a cup of coffee I wasn't planning to drink. I was tired in a way you don't feel in your muscles but deep inside your chest. Work had been draining, the business under constant pressure, and my marriage. Well, let's just say it was in a place people describe with soft voices and concerned eyes. Kira and I had been drifting for months. Some couples fight loudly. We fought quietly, with cold silences and forced politeness. There were nights she didn't even come home until after midnight. When I asked, she always had reasons, traffic, errands, visiting her sister. I pretended to believe her. She pretended to think I didn't notice. But that morning I wasn't thinking about betrayal or danger. I was thinking about invoicing reports. Then at 11:26 my phone exploded. Not figuratively, not metaphorically, literally. A flash of light, a burst of heat. A sound like a firecracker going off right next to my ear. Pain tore through my hand, sharp and burning. I dropped the phone on the tile floor, where it hissed and smoked like something alive. People screamed, chairs scraped. A barista shouted for someone to call an ambulance. I just stared at the blackened, twisted rectangle that had been my phone 30 seconds earlier. Someone tried to help me bandage my hand, but I barely felt it. My mind was racing, and each new thought hit me like a hammer. Phones don't just explode. Not like that. Not unless someone wants them to. Was it a manufacturing defect, a battery malfunction, or something else? I didn't know. But the fear didn't come from the phone itself. It came from the realization that I wasn't surprised. There had been signs. 2 weeks earlier, I'd noticed my laptop had been moved an inch to the left when I came home. Our safe's lock had been scratched. Someone had parked a white van outside our house for 3 days in a row. Kira's strange behavior, her constant texting at night, her whispers in the hallway. And the worst part, I had convinced myself everything was fine. I left the cafe, refusing an ambulance, insisting I was fine. My left palm was blistered and red, but adrenaline numbed most of the pain. I walked home, pressing the injured hand against my coat. I needed answers, but the universe didn't give me time to think. At 1:04 p.m., I got a call from an unknown number, harsh and piercing. I answered with my good hand. "Alexei?" a tired voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Officer Smirnov from the Metro Police Department. We have some bad news." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "There's been an accident. A vehicle matching your car model was found in the river. Your documents were inside. The body hasn't been recovered yet, but it doesn't look good. For a second, the world lost its sound. Everything muted. The cafe noise behind me, the traffic, even the ringing in my ears. "That's impossible," I said slowly. "I'm fine. I'm right here." Silence on the other end. A slow, careful silence. "Sir, where exactly are you?" "Near my home. What happened to the car? Did you track the plates?" "Yes, sir. Registered to you, and there was blood inside. Quite a lot." "Blood?" I felt the hair rise on my arms. "Listen carefully," the officer continued. "If you're alive, you need to get to a safe location immediately. It might be a mistake, but this looks like foul play." I didn't go home. I didn't go to the police station. I didn't do anything sensible. My feet moved on their own, carrying me toward the only person I trusted blindly, my childhood friend Ivan. When I reached his building, I was shaking. Not from pain, not from fear, from the realization that everything was too orchestrated to be coincidence. The moment he saw my hand, he didn't ask stupid questions. He grabbed my shoulders and said, "Lyoha, someone tried to kill you." The words hit like a punch to the spine. He took me into his basement workshop, sat me down, disinfected my hand, and said the sentence that changed my life. "You can't go home. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever, unless we figure out who did this." I tried to argue, to come up with rational explanations, but he cut me off. "Your phone exploded. Your car was dumped in the river. Someone planted your documents inside. That's staged, Alex. Someone wanted a body the cops couldn't find. And now they think you're dead." Dead. The word echoed in my skull. "Who would want that?" I whispered. Avon hesitated, his jaw clenched, and then he said something I wasn't ready for. "Maybe the question isn't who, but how many." Those words lodged in my throat like a stone, because deep inside, beneath fear and confusion, I felt a tiny spark of suspicion, a suspicion I didn't want to admit, a suspicion that came with a face I loved and trusted. I didn't say her name, but Ivan did. "Kira." Just the sound of her name made my stomach twist. "No," I said sharply. "She would never." Ivan cut me off. "Alexei, think, really think. Do you trust her?" The silence was my answer. I didn't know it yet, but this was the exact moment my old life died, and the man who would take revenge was born. If watching your own death sounds impossible, let me tell you this. Nothing feels more surreal than standing in the shadows of your own funeral while listening to people talk about you in the past tense. 3 days after the incident with my phone, I was officially declared dead. The police found my car submerged in the river. The documents inside matched mine. The blood on the seat was conclusive, and since no body was recovered, the assumption was simple. I drowned, swept away by the current. My wife, Kira, confirmed that I hadn't come home that night and that I'd been under stress lately. I read all of that in the police report Ivan managed to access through a friend. Stress. Right. If only they knew how accurate she was, just not in the way she wanted to imply. The day of the funeral was cold, gray, and strangely quiet, as if nature itself was holding its breath for the show about to unfold. Ivan and I arrived early. I wore a cap pulled low and a scarf that hid half my face. Nobody looked twice. Funerals are full of people who don't want to be seen. We stayed behind a cluster of tall trees, far enough that no one could notice us but close enough to hear everything. I expected pain. I expected grief. What I didn't expect was performance. Kira arrived last, stepping out of a black car she'd rented for the occasion. She wore a long black coat, her hair in a neat bun, makeup perfectly done subtle, tasteful, deliberate. She wasn't mourning. She was presenting mourning. She took her place beside the casket, my casket, with practiced fragility. She touched the lid with her fingertips as if caressing a memory. She lowered her head as if swallowed by sorrow. Anyone else would have believed it. But I watched her expression closely, zooming my mind into every detail, her posture, her breathing, the slight tightening around her eyes. There was something missing. Real grief doesn't care how you look. Real grief ruins your face. Kira looked flawless. She's good, Ivan muttered under his breath. Too good, I answered. The priest began speaking, offering condolences to the tragically departed Alexei. Friends and colleagues stepped forward to share memories. Older stories, funny anecdotes, things I never suspected had meant anything to them. That part hurt, not Kira's act, not the casket, not the lies. What hurt was hearing the truth, real, raw memories spoken by people who genuinely cared, while I had to hide like a ghost. When my older sister approached the coffin and placed a white rose on it, my chest tightened. When my mother broke down, sobbing, clinging to my sister for support, my throat closed. I wanted to run to them to say, I'm here, I'm alive, I didn't leave you. I'm not gone. But I couldn't. If what happened to my phone was intentional and it was revealing myself, would only put them in danger. I forced myself to remain still, breathing shallowly as if the cold air itself might betray me. Then came the moment I dreaded most. Kira stepped forward for her speech. She paused dramatically, letting the silence thicken like fog. My husband, she began, voice trembling, was the best man I ever knew. Ivan made a low sound in his throat, something between disbelief and disgust. I didn't blink. She continued. He was loyal, kind, honest. He cared for everyone except himself. I almost laughed. I almost stepped out from behind the trees right then and there. But the show wasn't over. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue I recognized from our bathroom drawer. She always kept them in the top cabinet, claiming they were soft enough not to ruin her makeup. I watched her turn slightly to the side, creating the perfect angle for the people watching. Then, just for a second, only a second, her face shifted. Grief vanished. A shadow of irritation flashed instead. She glanced at her watch, as if she were checking how much longer she had to pretend her husband being dead was an inconvenience. Ivan leaned closer. You see that? I see it. She's waiting for something, he whispered. I know. Something icy settled inside my chest, a feeling that would become very familiar in the days to come. It was the moment I understood, truly understood, that Kira wasn't just emotionally detached. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was invested in my death, not grieving it, invested in it. The service ended. People began to leave. My mother threw herself onto the casket one last time, wailing into the wood, and I had to grip a tree trunk to keep from running to her. When the cemetery workers lowered the coffin, dirt hitting the lid with hollow thuds, I felt something inside me, fracture. They were burying nothing. No body, no remains. Just my clothes, some sandbags, and a formal declaration that I no longer existed. Come on, Ivan murmured. We shouldn't stay. But I didn't move. I watched Kira walk away, her head not bowed, but lifted calm, almost relieved. And then it happened. Her phone rang. She stepped a few paces away from the others, behind a marble headstone, thinking no one could hear her. But the wind carried her voice to us. "Yes, it's done," she whispered. A pause. "No, nobody suspects anything." Another pause. "Yes, tonight, I'll bring the documents." Her tone shifted, softening in a way I hadn't heard in years, not with me. "Of course, love you." She ended the call and smiled. Smile, at her husband's funeral. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from rage so sharp it felt like a blade pressed against my throat. Ivan whispered, "We need to go. Now." I didn't argue. As we walked away, blending into the rows of silent gravestones, one thought echoed inside me with the clarity of a gunshot. She wanted me dead. And whoever she talked to on the phone wanted it too. I wasn't just a man who'd survived an accident. I was a loose end in a plan I wasn't supposed to uncover. And loose ends are usually cut. The night after my funeral, I didn't sleep. I lay on the old couch in Ivan's basement, a cold, drafty place filled with tools, cables, and the metallic smell of machinery, and stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment Kira whispered, "Love you," to another man while standing beside my grave. That image carved itself into my mind, repeating like a cruel loop. I kept seeing her smile, seeing the way she touched the headstone as she walked away, not with grief, but with closure, not with sorrow, but with satisfaction. It wasn't the smile of a widow. It was the smile of someone who had just cashed a check. By dawn, I wasn't the same man who had walked into that basement the day my phone exploded. Something shifted inside me. Something hardened. Ivan noticed it immediately. "You didn't sleep," he said, handing me a mug of black coffee. He didn't ask, he knew. "Could you?" I asked, voice rasped from hours of silence. He shook his head. "No, not after what we heard." We sat across from each other at his dusty workbench. A single bulb hung above us, flickering occasionally, casting an erratic, yellowish glow over the room. "I need to know who she called," I finally said. Ivan nodded. "I figured you'd say that." He slid a small device across the table, a phone interceptor he'd built from parts nobody without questionable hobbies should legally possess. "I recorded everything at the cemetery," he said. "The call wasn't registered to a normal number. It was a private relay line routed through multiple servers. Meaning? Meaning whoever she talked to knows exactly what they're doing." I clenched my jaw. "So, a random lover?" "I doubt it," Ivan responded. "Too much sophistication, too much money behind it." Money, of course. Everything pointed to that. Insurance, assets, my business. My death wasn't a crime of passion. It was an investment. "Did you trace the endpoint?" I asked. "Kind of," Ivan said. "The call switched between 3 VPN nodes, but 2 hours after the funeral, the same relay number called her again." My pulse spiked. "And?" Ivan tapped his keyboard, bringing up a screen with waveforms. "I isolated the audio." He hit play. At first, silence. Then a filtered male voice, altered but distinct enough to send a chill down my spine. "Is everything ready?" Kira's voice came through, sharp and irritated. "It would have been easier if you hadn't disappeared for 2 days." "I couldn't risk being seen at the funeral," the man replied. My stomach twisted, so he planned to be absent. Kira sighed. "Yes, everything is ready. The insurance company already approved the claim. They'll transfer the money this week." "Insurance. Just as I suspected," the man continued. "Good. And the other part? I'll get his business share notarized. I told them Alexei sold it to me before he died. They bought it. He was always reclusive. It fits the narrative. My hands curled into fists. She forged documents, sold my life's work, traded everything I built for a payout. The man kept speaking. We leave the country in 10 days. Make sure you pack light. 10 days. Kira made a small, breathy laugh, one I hadn't heard in years. I can't wait. Just next time, keep your promises. You said you'd deal with him cleanly. I did, he answered. He won't be found. Not alive, anyway. Ivan paused the recording. The silence after those words was heavy, suffocating. I swallowed. He thinks I'm dead. Yes, Ivan said quietly. But now you know what we're dealing with. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, head in my hands. Who is he? I asked. Do you recognize the voice? Ivan hesitated. I masked the distortion. Takes time to clean it up, but his expression tightened. There is something familiar. Not sure yet. I stared at the waveform on the screen. So he helped Kira plan it. He staged the car accident. He planted my documents. He blew up my phone. Ivan nodded. And he got sloppy, he added. That relay number shouldn't have pinged her phone twice. He got comfortable. Comfortable with my death? I said bitterly. With her death certificate, you mean? Ivan corrected. You weren't supposed to die instantly. The phone was the backup plan. Backup plan. I leaned back, letting the truth seep in like poison. So what now? I asked. Ivan exhaled slowly, as if preparing to say something I wouldn't like. What now is simple. You need to stay hidden, completely. If they spot you, they'll finish the job. I shook my head. No. No? I'm not hiding. You heard the recording. They're leaving in 10 days. They think they've won. They think everything is going their way. Exactly, Ivan snapped, which is why it's dangerous. I looked him dead in the eyes. I won't let them run with my money, my company, and my life while I sit here in a basement doing nothing. Ivan rubbed his forehead, frustrated. So what do you plan to do? I plan, I said, voice calm and steady, to make them believe they succeeded. Ivan blinked. What do you mean? They think I'm dead, I repeated. So I'll stay dead until I know everything. Until I know who he is, until I know what they stole, until I know what they're afraid of. Ivan slowly leaned back in his chair. That's dangerous. Good, his eyebrows lifted. Alexei, revenge blindens men. And betrayal sharpens them, I said. They want to erase me. Fine, I'll become a ghost they can't outrun. Ivan studied me for a long moment before finally speaking. All right, if you're doing this, you're not doing it alone. Ivan. No, he cut me off. I'm in this, whether you like it or not. I didn't argue. Not because I wanted to spare him, but because I knew I couldn't fight alone. I needed someone who believed me, someone I trusted. After a few minutes of silence, Ivan stood and went to a steel cabinet. He unlocked it and pulled out a long metal case, placing it on the table with a dull thud. What's this? I asked. Your new life, he said. He opened the case. Inside were tools, USB drives, encrypted phones, cameras, trackers, a laptop with no serial number, and a few items that would get any normal person arrested. Jesus, Ivan, where did you get all this? He smirked. Retirement hobbies. I couldn't help a bitter laugh. Then his expression turned serious. If you're really going after them, he said quietly, you need to become someone else. I nodded. I already have. A dead man doesn't have a name. but he has a purpose, and mine had never been clearer. People think that when your life is destroyed, rage comes first. They're wrong. Before rage, there's clarity. Cold, sharp, merciless clarity. The kind that makes you see everything differently. The places you walked, the people you trusted, the conversations you replay in your head. After hearing the intercepted call, I didn't feel anger. Not yet. I felt purpose. The man on the recording hadn't just wanted me dead. He was preparing a future without me. And whatever future they planned, I intended to burn it to the ground. Yvonne and I spent the next 2 days inside his basement, planning, analyzing, gathering every scrap of information we could. The world above us kept turning, cars driving, people laughing, phones ringing, while underground, in that dimly lit room, 2 men prepared for war. Yvonne traced the relay line again, trying to isolate the caller. The software he used wasn't exactly legal, but given the circumstances, legality had become a luxury. "It's strange," he said one morning, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "The voice is familiar, but distorted. I can't place it. Yet." "It's someone close," I said. "Someone who knew my schedule. Someone who knew about the car." Yvonne didn't deny it. He didn't have to. Meanwhile, I focused on something else. Kira's behavior. I replayed her conversations in my head, her excuses, her late nights, her sudden interest in my life insurance papers 2 months earlier, her coldness, her distance. She hadn't drifted away from me. She had been preparing for a life without me, and someone was helping her. By the 3rd day, I had gathered enough energy to do something I both dreaded and needed. I went home, not through the front door. I wasn't suicidal. Instead, Yvonne drove me to the street behind my house. We parked behind a line of old trees, out of camera range. My house looked exactly the same. White shutters, dark roof, the garden I used to maintain. The porch where I once kissed Kira in the rain. It was bizarre. My home was still there, but I wasn't. "Are you sure?" Ivan asked. I nodded. "This isn't a nostalgia trip. I need information." He handed me a pair of gloves and a small device. "Door lock interceptor. You'll get 3 minutes." I smirked. "Where do you even get these things?" "You don't want to know." He was probably right. I approached the back door like a stranger invading someone else's property. The irony wasn't lost on me. My heart pounded against my ribs, not from fear of being caught, but from the realization that the woman inside had already moved on. Emotionally, physically, and maybe literally. I slipped the device onto the lock. It whirred softly, scanning the tumblers. Within seconds, the door clicked open. I stepped inside. My home smelled different, colder, less lived in, as if my presence had been scrubbed away. The living room was spotless, too spotless. Kira had always been somewhat messy. But now everything looked staged, impersonal, neutral, as if she wanted to erase me from the house before she erased me from the world. I moved silently, memorizing every detail. A vase I had bought her on our anniversary was missing. A photograph of us on the mantel had been replaced with a bland landscape. My jacket was gone from the coat rack. My coffee mug wasn't in its usual spot. She wasn't grieving. She was deleting. I swallowed the bitterness and headed for her office. If she kept evidence, it would be there. Kira had always been meticulous with paperwork, even if she wasn't meticulous with honesty. Inside her office, nothing looked suspicious at first glance, but Evan's voice echoed in my head. People hide things where they feel safe. Where did Kira feel safe? The closet. I slid it open. Clothes, boxes, files, and a small fireproof safe tucked into the corner. I knelt down. 4-digit lock, standard model. Easy for anyone with a brain and Ivan behind them, except I didn't need Ivan. I needed Kira. Her favorite number was 13. Her birthday was August 24th. Her mother's birthday was January 7th. I tried 1324. Click. The door swung open. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Insurance papers, bank statements, travel plans, a notarized sale agreement transferring my share of the business to her. My chest tightened. She forged my signature. Perfectly. She knew exactly how I signed my name down to the pressure of each letter. And then I saw it. An airline confirmation. 2 tickets to Lisbon. Business class. Departure 9 days from now. Passenger names, Kira Petrova Dmitry Orlov Dmitry. A name that hit me like a hammer. Not because it was familiar, but because it wasn't. It wasn't a friend, not a colleague, not a neighbor. Whoever he was the man from the phone. The man planning to take her out of the country. The man who said he won't be found alive. I felt something hot and acidic rise in my throat. She wasn't just unfaithful. She had replaced me completely. In her bed, in her bank, in her plans, in her future. A life I built. A life she stole. A life she wanted to live with another man. As I gathered the papers, I heard a sound that froze me from the inside out. The sound of the front door unlocking. Kira was home. I closed the safe quietly, slipped into the wardrobe, and held my breath as she entered the office. She sighed deeply, muttering to herself. Her footsteps moved dangerously close. My heart hammered. If she opened the closet, she didn't. Instead, she sat at her desk, pulled out her phone, and dialed. The voice that answered was the same from the recording, distorted, cold. "Everything all right?" Kira lowered her voice to a whisper. "I told you not to call me during the day. Did you get the documents?" She paused. "Yes, they're in the safe. We're almost there." My jaw clenched. They were planning to leave, to vanish, to start a new life funded by my death. And I was standing 10 feet away from her, invisible to the woman I loved. Finally, she said something that turned my blood to ice. "I can't believe he's really gone," the man replied. "He is. Trust me. Dead men don't come back." I almost laughed, almost stepped out of the closet, but Ivan's voice echoed in my head. "Stay dead until the moment you strike." I slipped out when she left the room to shower, escaped through the back door, and ran until my lungs burned. When I reached the car, Ivan looked at me and immediately understood. "What did you find?" I held up the papers. "Everything," I said, "and it's much worse than we thought." Then I added, voice steady, cold. "Now, I know exactly what my revenge looks like." Finding the documents in Kira's safe changed everything, but it didn't answer the most important question. Who was the man behind the distorted voice? Dmitry Orlov. A name with no meaning. A name that didn't exist in my life before the day I died. But people don't appear out of nowhere, especially not the kind of people who know how to route calls through triple VPNs, forge signatures, stage accidents, and convince a woman to kill her husband for a payout. He wasn't just some lover. He wasn't just a fling. He was a professional. And professionals leave traces, no matter how careful they are. The hours after escaping my own house were a blur of adrenaline, anger, and cold focus. I sat in Ivan's basement, every muscle tight, staring at the stack of stolen documents on the table. Travel plans, insurance forms, financial transfers, fake signatures, a forged contract selling my business shares. Everything laid out like a crime scene. Everything except the identity of the man orchestrating it. Ivan sat across from me, tapping his fingers against his laptop. "I ran the name," he said eventually. "Dmitry Orlov doesn't exist, at least not under this identity. The passport number on the airline ticket? Fake, unregistered. Same with the tax number." "Of course it's fake," I muttered. "This guy isn't stupid." "Not stupid," Ivan agreed, "but arrogant. He thought you'd be dead. He never expected us to look so closely." I leaned back, breathing slowly, trying to keep my head clear. "Okay," I said, "so we hunt him another way." "How?" Ivan asked. I lifted the forged contract, the one where I supposedly signed over my business, by using the evidence he left behind. Ivan squinted. "What do you mean?" I held up the document. He used my signature as a template, which means he had access to my files, digital or physical. That narrows our suspects. Ivan nodded slowly. "There aren't many people who could access your signature templates." "Exactly." My mind immediately conjured the list. My lawyer, my business partner, my HR manager, my accountant, 4 people. 4 possible links. But only one person had access to everything: my schedule, my meetings, and my car. Only one person had been acting strange for months. Only one person hadn't shown up to my funeral. My jaw clenched. "Check one name first," I said. Ivan's fingers froze above the keyboard. "Who?" "Pavel. Pavel, my business partner, my friend. The man who had helped me build the company from scratch. The man I trusted. The man who didn't come to my funeral." Ivan's brows lifted slightly, but he didn't argue. He typed quickly, launching a deep scan. While he worked, I paced around the basement like a caged animal, each step hitting the floor harder than the last. If it was Pavel, if he betrayed me, if he touched my wife, my fists tightened until the bones creaked. Minutes later, Ivan broke the silence. "Found something." I stopped pacing. "What?" Ivan rotated the laptop toward me. A call log. Not Kira's, not Pavel's. The company's office line. "Your office received a call the night before your accident," Ivan said, "from a number routed through the same relay line we traced." My stomach tightened. "What time?" 1:23 a.m. Pavel had late-night access to the office. He often stayed late. "Play it," I said. Ivan hesitated. "Alexei, you need to brace yourself. Play it." He hit the button, at first static, then a voice slightly distorted but unmistakable. "Pavel, my friend, my partner. Everything is going as planned. She signed her part. He won't survive the week." Static. Another voice answered. The same distorted male voice from the funeral recording. "Dmitry. Good. Make sure the signature files arrive tomorrow. I will prepare the transfer." Then Pavel again, calm as if discussing weather. "He won't see it coming. He trusts me." My breath froze in my throat. Ivan stopped the audio. Neither of us spoke. Time itself seemed to pause, as if waiting for me to decide how to react. Finally, Ivan broke the silence. "So, now you know." I sank into a chair. Everything inside me shook, not with sadness, but with something far colder. Pavel. Pavel who celebrated my birthday with me. Pavel who was my best man at my wedding. Pavel who held my shoulder when my father died. Pavel who shared every success we ever had. Pavel who tried to kill me. It was almost funny how easily people reveal their true selves once they think you're gone. We spent the rest of the day tracking Pavel's movements. He'd taken sick leave from work. He hadn't answered calls from coworkers. He wasn't at home, but he wasn't hiding. He simply wasn't worried, because, to him, I was 6 feet under. By sunset, Ivan had traced his credit card usage, a restaurant, a purchase at a jewelry store, and then a hotel. Not just any hotel, a luxury suite booked for 2 guests. Check-in date the day after my funeral. Ivan showed me the digital invoice. Room 1214 comes with a king bed, champagne service, and private concierge. I didn't need to ask who the other guest was. Kira. I felt a slow heat rise in my chest, not like flame, but like molten metal. "I'm going there," I said. Ivan's eyes widened. "No, that's suicide. If they see you—" "They won't," I interrupted. "I'm not walking through the front door like an idiot." "Alex." "They think I'm dead," I said calmly. "So I'm going to watch how they behave when there's no reason to pretend." My voice was low, controlled, dangerous. Ivan stared at me for several seconds, then exhaled. "You're not going alone." "No," I said, "I am." "You'll be recognized." "No," I said again. "They won't recognize the dead." Ivan didn't like it, but he knew he couldn't stop me. Some battles a man fights alone. At midnight, we arrived near the hotel. Ivan stayed in the car across the street while I slipped through the rear entrance, a hood covering my face, my figure blending with the shadows. I moved through the service corridors, bypassing cameras, avoiding staff. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. I just needed to see, to confirm, to witness the truth with my own eyes. I reached the 12th floor. Room 1214 was at the end of the hall. Light glowed from underneath the door. Muffled voices, laughter. My hand shook, not with fear, but with fury held on a tight leash. I stepped closer. Then I heard it. Kira's voice, soft and playful. "We did it. We really did it." Pavel's voice, warm and intimate. "Soon we'll be gone. Just you and me." A kiss, the unmistakable sound of 2 people who believed they were safe. 2 people who believed they'd buried their problem. Me. I leaned my forehead against the cold wall, eyes closing for a moment. Not in pain, in promise. A promise to myself. A promise they would regret ever hearing my name. I didn't knock. I didn't break the door down. I didn't give myself the satisfaction of confronting them yet. No. I turned around and walked away silently. Because revenge isn't served when you're angry. It's served when you're ready. And I was getting very, very ready. The night I left the hotel, I felt something inside me settle. Not peace, not acceptance, but certainty. Certainty about what needed to be done. I had seen enough. I didn't need more proof. Pavel and Kira weren't guessing, weren't hesitating, weren't conflicted. They were celebrating. Celebrating my death. Ivan waited in the car with the engine running. The moment I opened the door, he looked at my face and stopped breathing for a second. "You saw them," he said quietly. I nodded. "I saw everything." He didn't ask what everything meant. He knew. We drove in silence for a long time, through dim streets, past sleeping houses, under streetlights that flickered like dying stars. "Alexei," Ivan finally said, keeping his eyes on the road, "tell me you're not planning to kill them." I stared out the window. "Not yet." "Not yet? That's not reassuring." I turned my head. "I'm not going to kill them. That would be too easy for them. Too fast, too clean." Ivan exhaled, relieved but still nervous. "So what then?" "I want them to feel everything I felt," I said calmly. "Fear, loss, confusion, the ground fallen from under them." "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" I leaned back, thinking. When you lose everything, you learn how people function, their routines, their weaknesses, the tiny details they think nobody notices. I'm going to take away the one thing they didn't expect to lose, I said. Even raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Control. The next morning, I began with something simple. Kira's phone was synced to our home Wi-Fi. That meant Ivan could access the metadata of her cloud backups, not the content, just timestamps, folders, device IDs. It was enough. At 04:17 a.m., while she was asleep in a hotel bed with Pavel, I logged into her cloud through an untraceable mirrored ID Ivan had created. I didn't steal anything. I didn't alter anything. I simply added something. A document. A single, empty document. Title: I know. Ivan stared at me. You're insane. Maybe, I said, but she'll think someone's watching her. You mean she'll think Pavel screwed up? Exactly. Paranoia is a powerful weapon. One hint, one shadow, one unexplained notification, and guilt begins to eat a person alive. By 6 a.m., the edit logs showed that Kira had opened the file. Twice, then deleted it. Then checked her other folders, then restored the file, then deleted it again. I smiled. She was losing control. At noon I struck again, this time at Pavel. He thought he was untouchable, smart, invisible, but professionals don't know everything. And Pavel, for all his cleverness, didn't know how to hide from someone who had shared an office with him for years. Through Ivan's system, I sent Pavel an automated email from a burner address. Subject: Unfinished business. We need to talk. No message, no name, no attachments. Just those 6 words. Within minutes, Pavel's phone pinged with the location request on the relay network. He was trying to trace the source. He couldn't. He never would. Ivan watched the data trail on his monitors. He's panicking, Ivan said. Trying different ports, different endpoints. He's burning through tools, fast. Good, I said. Let him sweat. Ivan turned to me slowly. What exactly are you doing, Alexei? I looked at him. Chapter 1 was survival, I said. Chapter 2 is fear. Fear spreads fast. By the next morning, both Pavel and Kira were already making mistakes. Small ones. Invisible to anyone else, but not to me. I knew them too well. Even before my death, I'd learned how each of them behaved under stress. Kira drank more coffee and ate less. Pavel talked faster, made impulsive decisions, and forgot details. And now, barely 24 hours after my first signals, both of those patterns were already showing. Ivan sat in front of 3 monitors, fingers flying over the keyboard. I stood behind him, hands in my pockets, heart steady. Strangely steady. Anything? I asked. Oh, plenty. He tapped a few keys and a map popped up on one of the screens. Both Pavel and Kira contacted the insurance company twice this morning. They checked the status of the payout. That means the panic is settling in. I smiled. Good. And Pavel? He tried to access office cameras from last week, and he requested entry to 3 internal servers. What was he hoping to find? Signs, Ivan said. Any sign. Signs of what? Signs that you're alive. I laughed softly, not with joy, but with a deep, controlled satisfaction. Good, I said. Let him believe that. Kira was the first target that day. Her fear grew faster and deeper. At 3:46 a.m., she checked the front door. At 3:48, she checked it again. At 3:53, she turned on the kitchen lights. At 4:01, she opened the living room curtains, as if making sure no one was standing outside. She was afraid of the dark, afraid of silence, afraid of me. And that was only the beginning. By sunrise, I made my next move. I left a trace in the one place she'd never expected. Her car. Not a scratch, not a note, nothing threatening. I simply adjusted the angle of her side mirror by a fraction. So small a change a man wouldn't notice. But a woman would. It was the kind of detail that whispers someone was close. Someone touched something you use every day. Someone you thought was gone. Kira noticed the moment she stepped out of the hotel. She froze, stared at the mirror for at least 10 seconds, trying to remember whether she had left it like that. Pavel said something to her, but she didn't respond. She saw only the mirror. She saw only the ghost. She saw me. Now Pavel thinks it's random, Ivan said, watching footage from the parking lot cameras. But she doesn't. Perfect, I said. Let her start doubting him. And the doubt had already begun. As they got into the car, Kira asked, "Did you touch the mirror?" Pavel answered too quickly, "No, of course not." Too quick, and she heard it. Her posture stiffened, her eyes shifted, and for the first time, she looked at him not like a lover or a partner, but like a stranger who might be lying, a man who might have secrets, a man who might have betrayed her too. Fear is a virus, and both of them were finally infected. The night I decided to end it all wasn't dramatic. There was no storm, no thunder, no cinematic flash of lightning, just silence, heavy, expectant, the kind of silence that feels like the world holding its breath. Ivan sat at the workbench, staring at me with the expression of a man who'd reached the end of his warnings. "You're sure?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said. "It ends tonight." He didn't try to stop me this time. He just nodded, slowly, like a man sealing a pact he wished didn't exist. "Then let's finish what they started." Kira and Pavel were staying in the same hotel suite, room 1214. Expensive, comfortable, a perfect place for two people celebrating a murder. But tonight, the celebration would end. I stood in the hallway outside their door, my hood low, my footsteps silent. I didn't knock. Ghosts don't knock. Instead, I slid a keycard clone into the lock, courtesy of Ivan's gray collection. The door clicked. I slipped inside. The room was dim, illuminated only by the soft city glow filtering through the curtains. I could hear water running, the shower, and voices. 2 voices. Pavel. "Relax, Kira. No one knows anything." Kira, shakier. "I'm telling you, something is wrong. That file, the mirror. I feel like—" Pavel laughed. "You're paranoid. Alexei is dead. Gone. We won." Silence. And then Kira whispered something that froze even my blood. "What if he didn't die?" Pavel snorted. "If he were alive, he would have shown up by now." I stepped deeper into the room, the carpet muffling my footsteps. "No," I said calmly. "He wouldn't." The shower stopped. Both froze. Kira stepped out first, wrapped in a towel, eyes widening in horror when she saw me. Pavel turned slowly, disbelief gripping his features like a vice. "Alexei?" he whispered. I stepped closer. "No, not Alexei." Pavel backed away instinctively. "You're dead," he hissed. "I made sure." "Yes," I said softly. "You did." Kira's hand flew to her mouth. She looked smaller than ever, fragile and terrified. But I didn't look at her. I looked at Pavel, my former friend, my partner, the man who decided my life was worth less than a payout. "You staged the accident," I said. "You stole my files. You forged the contract. You tried to erase me." He didn't deny it. He simply swallowed and said, "It was business." Business. That word shattered something inside me. Whatever was left of the man I used to be. "You killed me for business. You were holding us back, Pavel spat. The company was stagnating. You were cautious, predictable. I needed someone like Kira, someone with vision. Kira flinched. Ah, so she didn't know that part. Vision? I echoed. She thought you loved her. He didn't even look at her. Love had nothing to do with it. She was useful. Kira's face went pale. Her breath hitched. In that moment, she realized Pavel had played her just as easily as she played me. And that was enough punishment for her. Betrayal. Twice in the same life. She stepped back, trembling, tears filling her eyes. You said we'd leave together, she whispered. Pavel shrugged. We still can. Together we'll... No, I said, cutting him off. You won't. Before he could move, Ivan burst into the room from the corridor. He'd been waiting for my signal. He threw Pavel against the wall with a force I'd never seen from him, hand pinning his throat. Please, Pavel gasped. Listen. No, I said again. You listened when I begged for answers. Now it's your turn. I pulled out a flash drive, the one containing every recording, every document, every forged signature, every proof, and I tossed it onto the bed. I've already sent everything to the police, I said. Your accounts, your calls, the contract, the recording from the office, all of it. Pavel's face collapsed into pure despair. You can't. I can, I said. And I did. Kira stared at me, eyes red, voice shaking. What will happen to me? I looked at her for the first time. Really looked. You'll answer for the insurance fraud, for the forged signature, for participating in a murder attempt. She choked on a sob. And you? She asked. What will happen to you? I turned away. Dead men don't have to explain themselves. Ivan let go of Pavel. The man collapsed to the floor, sobbing, begging, trembling. Pathetic. The police sirens were already audible outside. Even security system alerted them earlier. Our work here was done. As we walked out of the hotel, Ivan looked at me. You okay? I thought about it. No, I said honestly. But I'm alive. He nodded. That's enough. I pulled my hood tighter and stepped into the night. A man without a past. A man without a grave. A man reborn. Not Alexei, not the husband, not the victim, just someone who refused to stay dead. And for the first time since the day my phone exploded, I felt something close to peace. The story was over. But my life, my real life, had only just begun.